Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the hottest geopolitical topics in Asia. The growing presence of the United States military in the Philippines, the debate over whether this could become a permanent base, and how this shift ties into the South China Sea disputes with China. Stay tuned, because this story mixes history, strategy, and the very real question of whether the Philippines stands to gain more benefits or face bigger risks. Let's start with a little history. For nearly half a century after World War II, the Philippines was home to two of America's largest overseas bases, Subic Bay Naval Base and Clark Air Base. These installations were symbols of U.S. power projection in Asia. But in 1991, the Philippine Senate voted not to renew the base's agreement. Nationalist sentiment, questions of sovereignty, and local opposition forced the U.S. to pack up and leave. Many thought that was the end of permanent American presence in the Philippines. Fast forward to the 2010s. The strategic picture in Asia had changed dramatically. China was rising as a regional power, expanding its military reach, and building artificial islands in the South China Sea. The Philippines, located right on the front line of these disputes, found itself in a vulnerable position. In 2014, Manila and Washington signed the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. This deal did not allow the U.S. to own or establish permanent bases. Instead, it gave them rotational access to Philippine military facilities. Think of it as a legal framework. The bases belong to the Philippines, but the U.S. is allowed to build infrastructure, preposition equipment, and station forces on a temporary basis. At first, 5 EDCA sites were approved, mostly air bases and training camps. But in 2023, 4 more sites were added. These new locations include Balabac Island in Palawan, close to the West Philippine Sea, Camp Melchor de la Cruz in Isabela, Lalo Airport in Cagayan, and Naval Base Camilo Osias, also in Cagayan, not far from Taiwan. Immediately analysts noticed the geography. 2 sites point toward Taiwan, a potential flashpoint between the US and China. One faces directly into the South China Sea, where Philippine and Chinese vessels frequently clash. Clearly, the locations were not random. So the big question people ask is, does this mean the United States is building a new base in the Philippines? The simple answer is no, at least not in the traditional sense. These sites remain Philippine property. The U.S. can use them, build warehouses, airstrips, and fuel storage, but only with Philippine approval. American forces come in rotations, not as a permanent garrison. But here's the nuance. While legally not a base, in practice these sites give Washington many of the same advantages. They can respond faster to natural disasters, conduct joint exercises, and, in a crisis, deploy troops and aircraft closer to contested waters. Now let's talk about what this means for the Philippines. On the positive side, EDCA strengthens the country's defense posture. The Philippine Navy and Air Force are still developing. They lack advanced ships, submarines, and long-range missiles. By hosting American forces, Manila gains access to training, intelligence, and modern equipment. It also sends a strong message to Beijing. The Philippines is not alone, and any aggression could draw in the U.S. alliance network. In addition, EDCA sites are being developed with new runways, hangars, and humanitarian facilities that can help the Philippines during typhoons and earthquakes. For a country that suffers natural disasters almost every year, that's a real benefit. But the arrangement is not without controversy. Critics inside the Philippines argue that these sites could make the country a target in case of a U.S.-China conflict. Local leaders in northern Luzon, near Taiwan, have expressed worries that their provinces could be dragged into a war not of their choosing. There are also concerns about sovereignty. If American aircraft and warships regularly use these facilities, some fear it feels too close to having a permanent foreign base, even if legally it is not. Others worry about the environmental impact of construction and the social impact on nearby communities. From the American perspective, the EDCA sites are a critical piece of the so-called First Island Chain strategy. This refers to the arc of islands from Japan through Taiwan and the Philippines, which can be used to contain China's navy and secure the sea lanes. The U.S. has been strengthening ties not just with Manila, but also with Japan, Australia, and even new partners like Vietnam. For Washington, a stronger presence in the Philippines helps offset Beijing's growing power in the South China Sea. Now let's look at the China angle more closely. Beijing has repeatedly warned against the expansion of U.S. access in the Philippines. Chinese officials have said these moves could draw the Philippines into the fire of confrontation. In recent years, Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels have been involved in dozens of incidents against Philippine ships in the West Philippine Sea, blocking resupply missions to Filipino troops and even using water cannons. Against this backdrop, the presence of U.S. forces nearby changes the calculation. It raises the stakes for China, but it could also escalate tensions. For the Philippines, it is a delicate balance. On one hand, Manila has won an international arbitration case in 2016, which rejected China's expansive, 9-line, claim in the South China Sea. That ruling is a legal victory, but without military muscle, it remains hard to enforce. U.S. presence provides that muscle. On the other hand, over-reliance on Washington could make the Philippines too dependent and risk retaliation from Beijing, economically or militarily. China remains a major trading partner, so the cost of angering it is not small. So will the U.S., very soon, set up bases or bring in equipment. The reality is, construction is already underway at some EDCA sites. Warehouses, fuel depots, and barracks are being built. Equipment pre-positioning has started in phases. But again, these are Philippine-owned facilities, only shared with the U.S. on rotational terms. Calling them permanent American bases would be inaccurate. They are more like forward operating hubs, designed to be activated quickly in times of crisis. To make this clear, the Philippines has not surrendered land or sovereignty. The government retains full control, but the arrangement definitely increases U.S. visibility and footprint. For the United States, that's a strategic win. For the Philippines, it's both a shield and a gamble. Let's wrap this up. What we are seeing in the Philippines is not a repeat of the Cold War era with giant American bases. Instead, it's a new model of flexible access, driven by modern geopolitics and the rise of China. The benefits are stronger defense, faster disaster response, and deterrence. The risks are potential entanglement in a U.S.-China showdown and domestic debates about sovereignty. At the end of the day, whether this is a net positive or negative depends on how both governments manage it. If the Philippines ensures transparency, invests in its own forces, and balances its foreign relations, it can maximize the benefits. If not, the country risks becoming a pawn in the great power rivalry. So, what do you think? Is this arrangement a smart move for Philippine security, or does it place the country in greater danger? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis of global defense and security issues. Until next time, stay informed and stay safe.